All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to 100 Degrees of Impact. My name is Matt Scott, and today I'm very thankful to be joined by Danya Sherman. Hey, Danya, how's it going?
Good, thank you, Matt. How are you?
Good, good. I usually start my interviews really flustered about how to introduce the person I'm talking with, because you have such a diverse background. I'd love if you could dive in and just introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Danya Sherman, as you've said. I'm the founder and CEO of NoNap, and I'm also a junior at the George Washington University. But that's pretty much what we're doing right now. I can also go into a little bit of my background experience, but I'll let the questions kind of lead there.
Awesome, and I'd love if you could go into your background experience just to kind of start out. You mentioned NoNap, but also knowing that you're a student and also being a fellow GW person, a GW alum myself, 2014. I'd love to hear like what led you to this point of being a GW student and studying what you're studying now.
Yeah, so I'm studying international affairs and security policy. I've worked on the Hill for a year, about a year ago. I worked on the Hill for a year, and period. And
Mhm.
I took a course called Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership, which I know you know the professor, Professor Kathy Fry. She's amazing. And it changed my life. During the class, we actually were required as a project to create a business model and business plan to enter into GW's new venture competition. And I entered NoNap. And since then, it's grown to where we are right now. And so I'm actually a fellow at the Halcyon incubator currently, which is where I'm recording from. And we've been very honored and blessed to be here and grow alongside very knowledgeable and passionate individuals.
So to kind of start from, I guess to start from Kathy's Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership course, where did, so you had this project that you had to do for the new venture competition. Where did your idea for NoNap or your inspiration for NoNap come from?
Yeah, so during the summer of 2016, while studying abroad in Spain, my friend drugged and sexually assaulted me. And it was only upon returning back to the States that I found I was not alone. And the issue of drug facilitated assault and crime affects a lot of individuals. In 2016, it was estimated that one out of every 13 college age individuals suspected having a drink laced with a rape drug. And as well, 75% of sexual assaults occur between two people that know each other. So when I returned back to the States and I was in Kathy's class, I was thinking of ways by which I could A, seek closure, but B, create a means to empower other individuals, both men and women, to not have to go through the same instances that I had to go through, or that my peers have been so courageous in sharing their experiences, both with me offline and also with the hashtag #MeToo campaign. That's been very recent. Um, so that's really the impetus of the company, and from the point of where I said this is something that I'm going to pursue, to having the idea of NoNap, to then actually growing it, receiving seed funding through the university, being accepted into the Halcyon incubator, most recently being first prize recipients of both Pitch George at the George Washington University and first place of Entrepreneurs Organization Global Student Entrepreneur Award. The venture's really grown, and I'm so humbled and honored along the way to have a potential of creating sustainable change around an issue that affects millions and is so personal to me, particularly.
Yeah, and I just want to stress how proud I am of your work, how inspired I was to see your work, especially when I came into the class to see your presentation and the others, because one, it's so meaningful and important, and you underscored that. But the other piece is that when I was a student at GW, I was involved with students against sexual assault. I still do workshops on healthy relationships and consent, an organization called PAVE, Promoting Awareness, Victim Empowerment, here in the DC area. And, you know, it's, you mentioned something that I'd love to ask more about. So I've met a ton of people, a ton of survivors who have decided to speak up and use their voice in a way that is often intimidating and not the easiest. So I guess my question is how you really came to that point where you decided, okay, I'm going to use this as the opportunity to speak up and do something about something that's so personal and important to you, but also so many others.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it wasn't an easy, straight road. When I entered the new venture competition, there were multiple rounds. And in the first round, and the first couple of rounds actually, I would say, you know, this is an issue that affects a lot of individuals. And as a young individual in college, it's something that I know I could be affected by. And a lot of the comments I received back from both judges and people that I had pitched to was, unfortunately, why are you the person to do this?
Yeah.
Why do you have a passion for this? And why will you bring this to fruition? And it kind of came to a point where I said to myself, if I want to create social change in an issue that's so personal and so there's so much hope for change, and so much perspective, then I have to be open. And it was not an easy decision. Every time I say my experience, it's not an easy thing to say. It's gotten easier with time, and in all honesty, I think it's comes down to a point of if I'm giving a presentation or a pitch, I'll have my words scripted, right? So you take out all emotion. It's just a script that you have, and that's for my own mental sanity, because that's important too, as you know, to balance. But also B, to make sure I'm getting across what I want to get across, which is that I don't consider myself as a victim, right? This is a horrible thing that happens. But at the end of the day, the reason I'm doing this company is to empower individuals. And it's my dream to make this business international and have the guy who's now currently in Italy see it and know that he empowered it, and that he couldn't break me, right? Because it's a huge issue. So just going back though, it wasn't easy. It still isn't. Every conversation I have with my peers, friends, or complete strangers in which they share with me their experience, I'm constantly inspired by their openness, and it makes me want to continue the fight to create social change, and especially around the issue of sexual assault, and drug facilitated assault. So.
Yeah, I am. Oh man, I'm so. It's so interesting because when I heard your pitch, which was maybe about seven months ago now, like it's so different because I really feel like I really connect with the passion and your story behind it now. I mean, I know that I'm pretty sure you mentioned like that this was something that was personal to you as a survivor, but it's giving me goosebumps, to be honest, because I'm thinking back to when I was a student and like all of the, you know, there are all these campaigns now, like the It's On Us campaign being like the popular national one. And now there's the Me Too, #MeToo campaign where people are constantly speaking up. And I think that's absolutely amazing and empowering. But like, I think back to even when I was a student, which was not long ago, only 3.5 years ago, so many people were like struggling to speak up or were worried about the repercussions. And still, I know that that's still a huge reality, but I think it's great to see people like you speak up. Like through Me Too, when we're seeing, our friends speak up, so on and so forth, then that empowers other people to speak up. And I just want to say I admire what you're doing and how you're doing it. But I guess that leads to a follow-up question. Have you, like, as tough as it is, are there any stories you've heard that really make it worth it for you, that you have spoken up, so honestly?
Totally. I have been humbled through, as you mentioned, we've actually been working on NoNap for, the idea came prior to Kathy's class, and it really hit fruition where I actually delved into it in Kathy's class. So we've actually been working on NoNap for a little shy of a year now. And through that time, really post Kathy's class, I've been very open about my experience. I have spoken, there's one story that really comes to mind where I was on campus and I was in a group of individuals, and this one girl came up to me and said to me, Danya, I don't know what to do. It was the second week of university, and she said, I was assaulted and I don't know who to speak with, and I don't know what to do, and you're the first person I'm sharing. And it was kind of one of those moments where you're at a crossroad, right? You can either be, this is what I did, and this is what worked and didn't, or you could say these are the resources. There are multiple ways to go around it. But it's those stories of individuals saying, I don't know what to do, please, what did you do? Or the stories of individuals who just share, Danya, you're not alone, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that are most inspiring for me and the ones that keep me going. Because at the end of the day, I'm not fighting for myself. And I have a great team and a network of individuals I'm working with who are super passionate about this issue as well. And we're all fighting, and that's what keeps me going, is really the stories of the individuals. So that's just one example of the numerous stories that have really made me take a step back and say the work that I'm doing is so motivating for right now, and something that I want to continue. I'm super passionate about the pursuit of justice and making sure that I can help others in a situation, in a topic that's so personal to me and to thousands, if not millions, of individuals globally.
Awesome. And I guess as a follow-up to that, just thinking about the campus setting, have you had different partnerships or other organizations that you've worked with or that you're beginning to work with on the campus level? I think when I first heard about your pitch, you were mentioning different groups who could potentially be involved, but I'm curious, before getting to the national impact or global impact that you're making or aiming to make, I'd love to hear about just the impact on campus so far in terms of getting your company up and running.
Yeah, so we're actually planning for our pilot, which will take place from December to February time. And we're partnering with interfraternity councils around the country, as well as Pan-Hellenic councils. We've been in conversations with health centers and Students Against Sexual Assault, and really ensuring, and Title IX offices as well. We really want to work on creating education and ensuring that there's information available about rape drugs. Because what happens is there's really a gap of education between high school and college, where in high school it's not as much an issue. And then when you come to university, you really only learn about drug-facilitated assault and rape drugs when either you're affected or a friend of you is affected. And universities and the trainings that you do prior to coming into universities are very effective on training on bystander awareness and consent, which is fantastic. There also has to be trainings, though, on rape drugs, and that's really what we're working on. As I mentioned, like, the statistic is not de minimis. There are many individuals that have been and continue to be affected, And we're seeing it in the news daily. I'm not going to name universities, but it's a huge issue that's getting more publicity, fortunately and unfortunately that it's still around. Fortunately that there's publicity, and that with that publicity brings change. And that's what we're working on. So those are some groups within the universities that we're partnering and targeting when we're continuing development. Because also what I like to share is that we're not a napkin company, right? So NoNap is a drug detecting napkin that's able to detect rape drug presence. Napkin able to detect rape drug presence. But we're not a napkin company. We are a company that is working to empower individuals, and we're a safety company. And the mode by which we are able to promote safety is through napkins. And the reason we chose napkins is they're discreet. They're usually always around alcohol. It doesn't raise eyebrows if you have a napkin with your drink. So that's what we're trying to promote. And we've been really fortunate enough to work with multiple avenues on university campuses to A, promote education, but B, also our product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's really important. Of course, we know that you're promoting NoNap as the product, but it is so important also, of course, the education piece, which you mentioned. And I think that a lot of people would appreciate knowing that you're focused on both, because it's not necessarily, I mean, it is about your products, but it's also not about your products. It's about something that's much bigger and about empowering people, like you were saying.
Totally. We're also we're also working with policy, and I mean, currently we have to boil the pot before we can boil the ocean, right? Mm-hmm. But ideally, I want to fight to break down rape culture. I mean, in a culture where survivors are often, they're worried about coming forward for numerous of reasons, or that there's an element of shame associated with an assault. That's completely horrible. And we're working to combat that as well, specifically on and around college campuses. And that's done through trainings, education, but also a change of culture. And what we're really trying to promote is that those conversations and facilitating those conversations. And that's why we're working on so many open partnerships and with other organizations that are already doing education, because it's something that needs to change, and that's what we're working on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think like the bottom line, which I'll underscore on this, but obviously I think it's excuse me, coughing on the call. But no, the point I want to really underscore is, like, when I'm going into schools now, or when I was a student with students against sexual assault, going into fraternities or sororities, like, I'm always underscoring the point, especially with high school students now, that like a rape or sexual assault won't occur unless the perpetrator chooses to actually to perpetrate the act. And so I underscore that here just as like part of what I always talk about, and part of why education and these other efforts are also so important to hopefully, I mean, one day, and sooner rather than later, ensure that these efforts, the work that you're doing with the work that I'm doing, I would say hopefully sooner rather than later, no offense, is obsolete, so that people don't have to worry about being raped or sexually assaulted. But we have a long way to go and a lot of work to do.
No, I completely resonate with that. Mm-hmm. There's a very fine line also in where we're coming from, because I will never, as a survivor, put out a product that would ever add to victim blaming. We are working as an empowerment tool, as just one element of what our mission is to combat drug-facilitated assault as a whole. And we're working to empower individuals, A, through the product, but B, by just changing the culture of social settings and bringing an awareness to the issue. And you touched on it completely, which is completely valid, of the issue of it takes two, and it has to be consensual. And something that I've been constantly amazed by is the issue of the prevalence of drug facilitated assault and sexual assault between two people that know each other. Right? Because there's a lot more of a gray zone, and at least from conversations I've had, individuals not feeling comfortable stepping forward because they know the person personally, right? They know that they have that connection. So it's also an education and a conversation of saying you have every right to say no whenever you want and retract consent whenever you want. And it comes back to that larger conversation of consent and what to do to promote personal safety. So this is an issue that there's multifaceted, something that my team and myself in particular are extremely passionate about, and just promoting safer social settings for all.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it goes without saying, like, I don't need to tell you this or be the one to say it, but because I'm the only other person on this recording, I mean, I think you're, as someone who has been involved also with you know, education and awareness and response and advocating for survivors for about the past 7 years or so. I feel like you bring such a strong, powerful perspective, and I'm sure that there are many people who are watching this who appreciate like all that you're bringing to the table in doing this work. And speaking of work, I want to definitely hear, you know, how is the Halcyon incubator supporting the work that you're doing? What's the progress that you're making or aiming to make as part of that?
Yeah, the Halcyon incubator staff have been amazing. I have been honored and humbled to be a part of a fellowship with 9 other individuals and 8 other companies. And we do skill series, just learning about different ways to improve our business. And we have connections with mentors, and it's honestly just been an amazing program. I really can't sum it up in a couple sentences, but they've honestly been fantastic in helping expedite the business and really making it something a lot larger than when it started.
With your work with NoNap, what is the vision ultimately?
Yeah, my dream is to live in a world. My vision for this world is that there's no drug facilitated assault, no sexual assault, consent, and that I want to live in a world where we can be carefree without concern. That's my dream. That's what we're working with NoNap on promoting, and also breaking down rape culture, and empowering survivors to step forward, those who want to and are comfortable to, and not having to worry about backlash or not being believed, you know, because that's something that I know that I've combated with, is if I step forward prior to building NoNap, it's what do I do now, right? Mm-hmm. And so NoNap's really my what now.
Awesome, and I'm like really excited to see how it continues to go, because NoNap is so new, and I think one thing that I really am thankful for through 100 Degrees of Impact is that I get to talk with people who have been running their organizations or pursuing their passion, even if it's not running an organization for sometimes for decades, sometimes for years, sometimes it's for months. But I think it's cool to see your perspective and hear from someone like you who's really just up and coming and who's really committed to making that positive change. And you know, I'm excited to see all of the updates on your journey. But to get to kind of one of my last questions, which is, so I say my favorite question, I guess, we'll see, is if your life and, you know, the story of your work and NoNap were a book or a documentary, what do you think the title would be and why? It's a tough question.
That is a tough question. And I'm also happy that you prefaced with it off camera first. I had some time to think about it. I still am thinking about it. I'd either say um I think I'd say one decision. Or I'd have it actually, I'd say 30 seconds would be the title. And the reason for that is I watched a TED Talk when I was at one of my lowest points when building No Nap, and I still think back on that. Okay, 30 seconds. Um, and it kind of the one night or whatever I said prior kind of resonates with this, but I think 30 seconds is more true to what I'm trying to say. The TED Talk said you can accomplish, I don't remember who it is. It wasn't my words, throwing that out there, but I live by it. And the TED Talk said you can accomplish anything in 30 seconds. And all it takes is 30 seconds of bravery. And I live my life by that. And why do I say that? When I was on the new venture competition, and even before every pitch, I get nervous as heck. I am shaking, I am self-doubting, and then I remind myself, I'm like, it takes 30 seconds, you get on that stage, and you practice what you pitched, and you are ready, and you are strong, and you are independent, and you are a woman, and you got this. And I give myself a 30-second pep talk, and I go out there. But I live by that, and you really can accomplish anything in 30 seconds. An example, another one I kind of laugh at. I call it my Ashton Kutcher 30 seconds, okay? I was at a Forbes 30 Under conference this past year, and I was in the front row because I had arrived an hour and a half early for the stage setting. And I knew Ashton Kutcher would be at the show, okay? And I'm not fangirling. He is a big VC and a venture capitalist. He's super passionate about human trafficking, which is also preventing human trafficking, which is also one of my passions. And I really see a rising prevalence of like intersectionality between rape, drugs, and human trafficking. And I was sitting in the front row when the presentation was going on. And all of a sudden, next to the stage, Ashton Kutcher comes out, faces the audience, but like is sitting off stage facing the audience. And I'm watching this. And I'm shaking. And I have my business cards on me. And the audience is dark. Okay, we're all watching the stage. And I say to myself, Danya, 30 seconds of bravery. When are you ever going to meet Ashton Kutcher again? So I grab out one of my business cards, shaking. I stand up. I'm in the front row, by the way. I stand up and I walk over to Ashton Kutcher and I say, bravery takes 30 seconds. My name is Danya Sherman. And I pitched in pitch black. And I just remember I gave him my business card. I shook his hand. And then I walked away. And I said, I'd love to be in contact with you. We have a lot of interests that overlap. And really, I think we have a similar vision for a world that we want to see for our children. And I said, I'd love to continue the conversation. Well, I walk away, and I'm also fangirling for a second. And I go and take out my phone to take a picture of him in a dark auditorium, and my flash went off. Okay, so I fangirled. But the reason I say this story is that anything can happen in 30 seconds. If I didn't take that opportunity, I don't know if I'll ever meet Ashton Kutcher again. I know that in life, like as a female entrepreneur of a tech company, there have been people I've met who I'm nervous of talking to. And at the end of the day, I think what I realized though is everyone's human, and everyone got there because they had some place they started, right? So everyone's human. You can talk to anyone. No one's above anyone else. Kind of what I've realized through this process, and also knew prior, but it's kind of been solidified. But I've really had those conversations and opportunities that I otherwise wouldn't have taken if I didn't have that mantra in my head of anything can happen in 30 seconds. So right, my life changed in one night. And I've been working every day of my life since to kind of work as healing for me, but also to promote a change on the SGO. And it's 30 seconds at a time. So I think that's what I'd say. Everything in life, just 30 seconds of bravery. That's all it takes.
That was such a beautiful answer, and I didn't even expect that story. But actually, before before I get carried away, talking about how inspired I am. So, did Ashton Kutcher email you?
He has yet to follow up, but I am still optimistic. Ashton, if you're watching this, feel free to follow up.
What's the email he could reach you?
You can reach me at information@nonap.com.
Okay, yeah, we have. And speaking of which, actually, as we get to the end, where could people find out? People, including Ashton Kutcher, find out more about NoNap and your work.
Yeah, so feel free to look us up on www.nonap.com. That's KNONAP.com, the napkin that knows. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And they're able to reach out, and anyone's able to reach out and partake in our pilot, as well as our regional launch, which will take place in April of 2018. Cross your fingers.
Oh, amazing! So
Yeah.
I learned a lot. I've learned a lot about the power of 30 seconds, and I feel like anyone watching learned a lot about that. And so, as we wrap up, first and foremost, if anyone wants to find out more about 100 Degrees of Impact, we're online at www.lets.care or on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at Let's You Care, facebook.com/Let's You Care. Ashton, you can also email me and 100 Degrees of Impact at hello@lets.care, or go to the contact form, or tweet, or direct message, whatever works best for you. But thanks again, Danya, for the interview. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Matt, for your time.
Awesome. And for anyone else who is watching, until next time, keep impacting.